Good morning and welcome to week 6 of my HIFAWIP journal, where I tell you how I feel about what I played this last week. Evidently, I am not where I typically am for one of these. I'm house sitting right now, so if you see a rat in the background, that's why. But because of that, this week was kind of slow on the games front. I only sat down to play something, like with actual intent to play something, one time, or maybe twice, I think, but one of those times was really good and I got some good footage of it. I was finishing the game A Way Out with Gage. A Way Out is one of those co-op experiences by Hazelight Studios, and that's the people that made the recent Split Fiction or It Takes Two games. I honestly thought that A Way Out was their first game, but a quick Google search tells me that they made a game called Brothers before this one as well. But I was surprised to find that because A Way Out is a little bit dated in some aspects. You can tell that it was made before they made their Game of the Year winner, and honestly, Game of the Year that year should have been Metroid Dread, but I digress. It has good bones to it, and I think that structure has been successful for them later on anyways. It was fun, but it was definitely a mixed bag of gameplay, and the highlights were definitely the sections at the end that were heavy on like the shooter aspects of the game. But for the most part, other than like the driving and shooting sections that showed up occasionally, like the end, it was a lot of walking, a lot of quick time events, a lot of cutscenes, and quite a few fun mini games to play with whoever you decide to play with as well. The mini games were probably like the most engaging part of the game for me because the plot wasn't the most engaging. It worked, but it wasn't brilliant by any means. And I think the mini games are like very replayable, and they've all got achievements associated with them as far as I can tell, and so they're fun to like go back to try to achievement hunt. I might do that with Gage sometime. During our session, I played a mini game where you have to try to balance on the back wheel of a wheelchair, and I spent probably like 5 minutes doing that instead of triggering the cutscene where I'd hold my firstborn child for the first time. So it was a very good use of my time. And before that, we, in the same location in game actually, we played Connect 4 together. Gage won the first one and then I won the second one, and so we were gonna go to the best 2 of 3, which was my understanding. But then this happened.
Fuck! Fuck!
What the fuck is wrong with you?
Alright, man, let's go.
And I was so fucking mad. But we locked in and played it till the end after that. Spoilers for a 7-year-old game, but it was revealed that the entire time I was playing as a cop who was trying to enact justice on the people that killed one of my coworkers, and who might have also been my brother. I wasn't super clear on that. I ended up betraying Gage's character. The game spends so long like selling the justice and what the main characters are doing together, and like not trying to set up that you guys are like doing anything wrong in any kind of way, and it takes no strides to paint the main characters as being like morally wrong even though they were in prison. And I didn't like that my character had lied. I decided to cook Gage's shit as much as I could because I knew I could win and I needed him to know that too. But I ultimately let Gage win because his character had the moral high ground on me as a lying piece of shit. I've gotten complaints the last couple of weeks for talking about Fortnite too much, so I'm going to keep this week's Sunday Fortnite Super Fun segment a little bit shorter than usual. Once again, we started with playing Blitz Royale, me and my dad, and we went 5 losses and 6 wins, which I think is the best that we've done so far in terms of ratio and games played. For this week of Blitz, the starting items were the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtle mythics from the beginning of last chapter, and so that meant that every game you started with some form of mobility item, and everyone else had one as well. So there was more of a hectic layer to the games that we played, and I ended up pulling the Mythic Charge Shotgun from a level up a couple of times, and so that was really fun to use. I think I mentioned last week that I've been enjoying the Charge Shotgun. Afterwards, we ended up playing BR like usual. Though it was only for 4 games, we only won 1, but honestly, it was one of the most fun BR games I've had in quite a while. As a team, we ended up getting a perfect 20 kills together, and there was a ton of really fun fights that we got into, fighting around the island. There was like a car chase. There were like giant valleys that we were fighting in between, and a lot more. I think that is like the large map format, and then hectic endgames are my favorite part about battle royales as a whole. And so that was cool to be able to do that with my dad. I actually had a similar game when I was playing alone last night after I got here, and somehow the match lasted long enough to where it was the final zones, which is circles that don't stop moving until they're fully closed, which happens in Fortnite at the very end of a match. And honestly, I don't think I've ever seen that in a zero builds game, or at least not that I've played personally. In the most recent update, they changed some kind of weird things that I have some gripes about, but I will leave those to rest because I'll be playing again tomorrow, and we'll have the chance to talk about them next week, more than likely. Side note, before I get into the real game 3 for this week, I've done a few runs of Peak with Gage and my cousin Parker in the last couple of weeks, and we've gotten to the top twice now altogether. Well, I say all together, but the first time it was actually just me that made it to the top, and they each died like 3 or 4 times. And the second time it was me and Parker that made it to the top, which was notable because it was Parker's first time ever making it to the top, and it was also their 18th birthday. It was like 2 minutes off from when they were like actually born. So that was pretty cool. And I just wanted to include the segment so I could rub it in their noses that I was significantly better at the game than them, if you'll consult the chart. Game 3 this week is The Bear. I played this show on my TV at home, I played it on my phone in bed, and I played it here on the TV where I'm house sitting, and so I think it qualifies for the how I feel about what I played. So I'm going to talk about it, because it's my journal. Immediately, this show has become one of my favorites of all time, like probably one of my top 3 favorite shows. And I just started like last week, or maybe the week before, but I've gotten through the first 2 seasons, and I believe there's 4. I'm going to get the spoilers out of the way first. So for those of you that want to watch this show and haven't yet, or if you're named Benjamin and I'm going to make you watch this show, then skip to this timestamp and I'll be brief. Okay, first of all, Jon Bernthal is fucking fine as hell if he's not currently playing a apocalypse survivor or a psychopath. Even sometimes when he is playing a psychopath, he's hot, if I'm being frank. But his character in this show is really fucking sad. It's established very early on that the main character has a brother that died to suicide, and Jon Bernthal plays that brother. And since I've just barely finished season 2, there's only been a couple of scenes that he's been in because they aren't super heavy on the flashbacks, which I really appreciate, actually. I think if the show just had a bunch of flashbacks, it'd kind of mess with the main continuity of the story. The show spends a lot of time interacting with how his life choices affected the people around him and how they continue to affect them after he's gone. And his interactions during the flashbacks and then the way that they talk about him afterwards are so tragic, and it's so beautifully written and incredibly heavy and also shot beautifully. Like the way that they made you feel for this character and for everyone that loved him, despite all of the drama happening around them, is incredible. The show has a lot to say about like mental health and its intersections with like expectations and masculinity through a lot of nuance, through a lot of the characters that it has. And I can't even summarize it here without botching it. If you want it done justice, then I highly recommend just watching the show. It's incredible. Anyways, that wasn't the biggest spoiler, I think, but those elements, instead of just being spoken about to someone, should definitely be experienced for the first time if you're going to watch this show. Otherwise, I really, really loved the cinematography in this show. I really like how they frame interactions between the different characters, and the color and the lighting is always so beautiful. In season 2, the main character has a love interest, and every single interaction that they have is shot with this like super close up wide shot, and it makes every single scene that they have so intimate, and it sells their connection so well. I also really appreciate how the story is paced. It's probably the first show that I've ever watched that's like made for streaming where I don't have an issue with like the 8-ish episode made for streaming format. And that's because it doesn't feel at all rushed. It doesn't feel at all like bloated, like they're trying to shove too much into it. I think it was written perfectly for that setup. And the episodes are like all around the 35-minute mark, which once again feels like it would be a lot slower, but they pack it in and it's all so wonderfully paced during the episode that it just works really, really well. I think my only real complaint is like a minor plot line in season 2 that didn't feel like it had a sufficient ending, but nobody really talked about it afterwards. But honestly, with how many amazing characters and amazing plot lines there are in this show, I don't really have that much of a difficult time setting that aside for my overall enjoyment of the experience. Everything is just written into such a wonderfully flowing story with parallels between the characters, incredibly dynamic interactions between the characters and their relationships, and it's a work with so much passion poured into it. And I didn't go into it expecting to love it as much as I do. And as long as season 3 and 4 are just as good, I don't think it's going to make it out of my top 3 shows of all time anytime soon. I keep saying top 3. I don't know what the other 2 are off the top of my head. Well, one is Daredevil, the original Netflix show, not the Disney garbage, but I can talk about that some other time. That's all I have this week, as like I said, I didn't play a ton, and now I'm here trapped with these beasts and creatures. Thanks for sticking around to the end, and if you're still here, you should leave a comment about something good you watched this week. Last few weeks, I know I've left some games unfinished, so expect more Xenoblade or Metroid, or there's probably something else, but expect at least one of them to return next week. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you then. Hush. It's fine. It's the chickens. You're fine. Hey, can you guys knock it off for a minute? No butter. Sorry. Not right now.